All right, I'm going to try to demo after one failed attempt so far, second time's a charm, what it looks like in Microhost when we go about um, both prompting, like for making code edits, and then actually I've developed this prompt wrapper library or module that allows us to sort of interactively run prompts in the system. So right now we're gonna do a very meta query. We've kind of queued up something here to improve the prompting interface. So what I have found helpful. So not only we already know attaching files that are relevant, about what we want to edit is good. But something I'm going to do in addition right now or something I've done in addition is I've attached an instruction file. And so I've kind of found that in working with the LLMs that I tend to always attach relevant instruction files, and of course that begets the question of like, what is what is a relevant instruction file, like, and you do have to read what the instruction files are. You do have to, I think, verify that part. But once you've done that one time, like in this case, as we'll see in a second, I was sort of remarking that this piece of console message was unreadable, and we're going to improve upon it. And I'm doing that by way of attaching the instruction file where I've previously captured all of the intelligence, where I sort of say, this is how we, author readable console messages. So it's going to do that. And that's going to, and that's because when I was trying to do this before, I found a bug. So we're going to fix the bug. Hopefully Claude is running for us right now. And then in general, I'm going to demo a pretty basic usage of prompting that I found, structured prompting. And I should say that, by the way, that you do have a primitive inside of MCP where if you click in these dot dot dots up here, I apologize. If you click in the gear icon, you should be able to go to, I believe, under chat instructions. So that's instruction files. So that's different. So I should say this differently. So it actually is within MCP. So if you attach an MCP server, the MCP server itself can expose prompts. So prompts in this sense are, you can think of prompts as different than instruction files in that the content of those prompts are dynamic. And so we're going to see an example. I think of this as a very simple hello world example where we don't want to come up with the commit message when we push to git. And what we're going to have is the LLM summarize what the commit message will be. And so we have this really simple commit. It's updating after I did some caching that improves or fixes. After we did some caching changes on the last commit, it broke the installation of Microhost. And so this code change, authored, of course, by the LLM, in fact, fixes what broke. And so we're going to show how you can see how this is staged already. These changes are staged. And we're going to look at, we're waiting on the LLM to produce a fix here. And then we're going to stage those changes. And then we're going to show what it looks like to auto summarize a commit. Now, this type of feature, I'll just hit pause for a second and navigate to the right window. And so I had thought truly that this was something that was in GitHub, but a colleague had actually shared with me that there's now this little button right here next to the where you would typically in the GUI input your message. So we could just hit this and see what it comes up with, and then we'll just compare it. Or we'll see, running through the prompt system that I've kind of come up with, what this would look like. Yeah, this is a generally okay commit message. But again, it's like it's not to say that, like, in this particular instance, it's not a game of like, oh, Microsoft already added the magic AI commit message button here, because in general, what I'm going to show in a second is, it's more that we want a system in place to generate prompts. And like I said, again, so MCP handles this type of format as part of its protocol, which we can go pull up a window for. Yeah. So here, if we were to open this up and we were to read through this a little bit. So MCP provides standardized ways to expose prompt templates to clients. And the idea is that when you expose the prompt template, um, you're, and I have to explore like if the LLM caches this, but in general, the idea is that this is your space where you can generate automated prompts that hopefully are building an intelligence from your system. So that the key difference is that rather than just be an instruction file, it's dynamic. And we'll see in a second kind of what, to me, like a Git commit message summary is a pretty basic version of doing this, but we'll see what that looks like in a second. But if we read through this, and by the way, so MCP, like, you can operate it. I think the way I've been exploring it, operates over like a socket. And then you kind of expose that socket to VS Code. So if we were to click on this gear icon again, we hit MCP servers. What exactly is it doing? Okay, so yeah, you can see that I've already installed my MCP server. I don't know what happens if we click this button. I'm afraid to break things, but yeah, you can see it's where it's sourcing it in the file system. And funny and true, but it's like, I obviously had the LLM build the MCP server. So beyond some of these details, it's just us reading through the docs here together. But it's basically you're exposing through your MCP server the prompts that you want to have the LLM know that it can call. And in my understanding, like, you should then be able to, I think it's something as simple as like in your chat window down in VS Code, you should be able to type prompt. I thought it would have been that you type prompt and then you would be able, and it might still be something like that. Or maybe it's like an at with a prompt, but it's some variant like that. Maybe it's under tools. And then you can see like my MCP server comes up, but these are tools calls, which is slightly different. We're talking about prompts, and maybe it's just because I didn't expose it yet, but it does kind of end up living in a space like that. All right, so basically now Claude has said that it finished, so we can try to test out this code. So again, if we go back to the Git view, we can see we have these stage changes. We'll go and we'll run this command, which is micro prompt git commit message. We'll see that it says, what would you like to do? You can execute the prompt in the LM. You can save it to a file only. So in the simple view, we would just save it to a file. Now, I like this because in general, I think of GitHub, or sorry, I think of Microsoft as subsidizing LLM usage. So like I used to be a believer in like, oh, Claude Opus is 3 times the amount of cost. Like, oh my gosh, I should not use it. And then I kind of noticed that like, I never got to the end of my premium requests. And so that's when I switched over at the urge of colleagues. I switched over to using Opus, and it's been a kind of superior product. But the reason to do this idea of like, we're going to print it and we'll go back and try to execute it in a moment. But the idea is that we can run it in these more powerful models more cheaply. But this is an example of a dynamic prompt because what it's doing is it's taking a sort of a prompt template, and then it's dynamic. The dynamic work that it's doing is it's going and building a code diff based in what's sitting in our local file system. And so now if we were to go back in, and let's do something a little bit more complicated this time. So this time, so saying that these are the files that it updated. We'll just go find those. So we'll add this to our commit. I mean, we'll briefly go look at it. That looks fine. Then It updated. It says it updated. Here, this is the file it updated. This is it improving the DX because I had asked it. I didn't like the way it looked before. And so now we're gonna do this again, and this time we're gonna hit execute the prompt in the LLM, and we're gonna see that it provides us. It gives us a summary of like this is the estimated amount of tokens. It gives us a listing of all the models that we could execute it in. It tries to tell us what the max context is that we could send. What's super funny to me is I tried this on the last video and I tried to submit it to 5.2 and it didn't work. It was like 1,700 tokens. It was like, no, it's too much for the context window. So something seemed broken there, which we could also direct it to. We'll try it just to see it break. Here it's saying like, this is what we're about to execute. Here's going to be the estimated cost. You want to proceed? Yeah, let's do it. And then we'll go run this back to, we'll run this through Claude right now, but then we'll rerun this again. This doesn't look right. GPT. Prompt was only tokens. Okay, so now go to execute prompt. We'll do it in 4.0. We'll hit yes, sure. And now it's sending the prompt to the LLM. And then what I didn't really show is that if we were to execute, we can see that the prompt itself, its whole goal is to output a file called get commit message. And so here, when we run it directly in the LLM, again, like our goal is to save it right here. And so it does do that. So it did work this time. So yeah, it should be as easy as now we can just copy paste that. We can paste in here. We can test really quickly to see like how does this compare side by side to like using the LLM feature. But again, like the point of this is not to try to like compete with making a get commit message summarizer. It's more just the overall framework of being able to structure prompts and eventually in the system what's going to more cleanly integrate with MCP prompting. Okay, so this is this is weird. This is much worse. Like it cached it. It didn't really. I'm a little surprised. I expected more. This is their message. If I do word wrap. So this is a much better, and this is only in 4.0. Like this is not good. So, and over here, we can see Claude Opus just chugging. But that's in general like kind of what I've been working on with the automated prompt format. I think if I was to type in my system micro list prompts, we should be able to see all the different prompts that are available. So there's code analysis, code review, but right now, like I'm not actively using these other ones, but I did put the work into sort of staging it so that this will be the area and the format in which a lot of this gets run. But yeah, that is prompting in Microhost as it currently stands. And a little bit of a tour through, for instance, MCP prompts, and how they're different from instructions. And, again, the key point is that the prompt here, let's bring it up to this window, close this window. The prompt here shows that it's dynamic. It's getting a diff from the file system. I think this is a different older prompt perhaps. But the idea is that it's dynamically generating the prompt is the important part.